Here's why I think one lens is really all you need. Now, before you skip or go on to another video, hear me out, because I really do think that for the majority of us, one lens is enough. Now, a wide-angle lens or a telephoto lens or a prime lens, yeah, in certain places can be essential. But for the most of us, like, let's be honest, really most of my work is covered with one lens. Now, the lens that, I've fallen on and that I use predominantly for all my work, be it YouTube or client work, is the 24-70 G Master 2 lens for the Sony a7 IV. I've had absolutely no issues with it whatsoever, and it basically does all the jobs that I need. Now, of course, there have been times when I've needed it to go a little wider, or I needed to, reach further. Of course, it would be nice, but they are the 10% of cases. Because what I'm trying to do is get most of you out there to start thinking, as I've written here, beyond the lens. Because we need to think beyond our gear. As you've seen a lot maybe on my channel recently, I have been talking about basically why I don't invest in gear anymore, and why it's kind of a toxic trait of ours as photographers and videographers to keep acquiring it. We've talked about GAS, which is gear acquisition syndrome, and something that has taken me a long time to get over, but I can confidently say that I don't really have that anymore. My setup, what I have, is enough. My clients are happy, and more importantly, I'm happy with the creativity that I'm coming up with. So what we have to think about now really is, what do we have? What do we have at our disposal? How can we be more of a creative problem solver for clients, for ourselves, to make the content that is needed, to scale a business, for example. If you're thinking of doing this full time, this is the way you have to start thinking. Acquiring gear is not going to get you more clients. To be honest, clients couldn't give a rat's ass about what gear you've got. I've never, ever been asked by a client, not maybe once or twice, about the gear that I've got. If anything, it's a comment like, "Oh, that's fancy, look at that," but in a kind of more of a sarky way. It's very rare anyone gives two hoots about what I've got in my kit bag. I know you guys do out there, and you're a different audience. But remember, as photographers, as videographers, the client just wants the outcome, and the outcome isn't actually the pretty picture or the nice film. It's, have you solved the problem that is behind that? Why have they reached out to you? They've reached out to you because they have a problem that you can fix. And maybe that is, storytelling, visibility, something that, transpires from their head to the screen. And I think as photographers and videographers, we have to really, we have to think about that more. Gear's fine, but it's more, that's kind of like a hobby, kind of, accumulating more gear. And whenever I meet other photographers and videographers, that is predominantly what we talk about. But really the conversation we need to start having more between ourselves is, how are you making this work? How do you travel so often? How do you acquire more clients? Because that, in the long run, is going to be able to, buy you a wide angle lens, or buy you a telephoto lens, or a nice prime. Once we start thinking like that, gear, is just acquired when we need it. And we're not thinking, in a scarcity mindset. We're thinking more of an abundant mindset. And that's the shift that we all need to make out there, because that was the shift I took and I have taken, and there's no looking back now. I, for the last couple of years on this channel, have only talked about gear. I've talked about the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, the one that I have here. I've talked about the switch from Fujifilm to Sony, and it's great. It's good topics. They're good things to talk about, but that's not really going to help you. What's going to help you, like I said, in the long run is, are you solving big enough problems for people to really, want your services? Now, some of you obviously are out there thinking, but I'm a hobbyist. Like, I'm not interested, really in acquiring clients, any of that stuff. But I still think it's kind of, silly to keep acquiring just the new latest gear. Remember, these things are for your creativity. They're for the purposes of making stuff. And we've kind of forgotten about that. We've got too hung up on buying something to show off on the internet and parade it around as, oh, I've got the newest, latest thing, when really what you had probably before was good enough. So we really need to get out of that mindset, because even as hobbyists, that's not good. You're just spending money on the next fad. And I really, I've been talking to a lot of my students and clients. They need to make the shift as well. It's easy to get stuck in because, I still I'm interested in gear. I just know now that it's not going to help me get to the place I want. And the place I want to get to is, helping people with big problems that they need solving to, whether it be with my photography or or my videography. There's no doubt that having a camera has changed my life. I'm so pleased with the trajectory of where it has taken me. But now, in this point in my journey, I'm more clearer than I've ever been. And it is that, I even feel better about my job in a nutshell. I feel pushing the latest gear and the latest fads onto you was unfair. Like I've said before, I was definitely doing it to gain more views rather than to actually push you towards a product that would help you. I'm sincere in what I say, but unfortunately, I don't think the accumulation of more is necessary. And that's why we talk about having one lens. One lens is enough. If you're wanting to gain more clients, if you're wanting to make more money, probably one camera and one lens will get you at least one client, 2 clients, 3 clients that will just build your business, build your side hustle, so you can then maybe buy, a second lens, a second piece of gear, or whatever it is you need. The acquisition of gear, has got out of control, and I think, it's high time we all take a really long and hard look in the mirror. I know that I had to, and I'm not going back. It was a terrible kind of cycle I felt like I was in, but now what I'm doing and how I'm going forward is completely different, and I turn up every day with purpose. And now I'm actually helping other photographers and videographers realize the same. And if you are interested and want help with this, there is a link in the description. Go check it out. It is this. I've developed a system that helps you go full time in this line with your camera. And so if you're, thinking this, if you're a hobbyist maybe, and you're thinking this is something that I would like to get into, this is something I'd like to pursue more, have a look. And if you want to go one step further, book a call with me. I give a free strategy call, and we just get you clarity. We get you, thinking differently about this approach. So look, that's going to do it for this video. I hope there has been some insight. I hope you've realized, where I'm at now, and how I want to turn up and help you on this channel. This was a bit of a ramble. I hope some of it was congruent with what I'm saying. But yeah, the one lens you have, the one you use all the time, yeah, it's probably enough.